Hello everyone, I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. Welcome to Training Tuesday for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. This week I'm going to go over with you how to use your training target to mark a behavior. What does it mean to mark a behavior? It's just communication from you to the animal, in this case to your snake, to let them know they've achieved a behavior that's going to earn them reinforcement, or in their mind, something that's rewarding. Basically, a marker signals the end of a behavior and that reinforcement is on the way. You might hear it also called a bridge, an event marker, just a marker signal, a marker stimulus, a bridging stimulus, any of these things. And a marker is thought to bridge the gap between when the behavior occurs and when reinforcement is delivered. Now, I have thought in italics and I have an asterisk by it, and I'll talk about why in the next slide. Common markers include whistles, clickers, and words, but you can use other tools as well. You could use touch to mark the end of a behavior. You could use a bell. You could use vibration. You could use a light. You could use scent. Anything that communicates to the snake that, yes, you have completed the behavior I wanted you to do and you're going to get rewarded, that is what a marker is, or a bridge. The reason that I had an asterisk by thought to is that there are some recent studies that suggest that the addition of a clicker, a verbal cue, or any kind of marker signal does not enhance training performance compared with using primary reinforcement alone. So that means that it doesn't enhance performance, it doesn't speed up the learning process, it doesn't really do anything to hinder or help the training process. And then there are some other studies that actually indicate the use of a marker helps the trainer or helps the human stay on task during sessions. So whether you choose to mark a behavior or not, whether you choose to use a bridging stimulus or not, is really up to you and your animal, how you're getting along together, and whether you think that you need to use that for the behavior that you're training and with that individual animal that you're working with. So using the same target you cued the behavior with to also mark the behavior is what I'm actually going to talk to you about today. Now note that this is different than using the target to cue more behaviors, as I do for the hold behavior that you've seen me use in some videos. And I will go over that in a future video. And if you're one of my Patreon subscribers, we talked about that in the last live training chat. What I'm talking about today is strictly using the change in orientation of the target to bridge or to mark the end of a behavior, not to cue an additional behavior. So basically you're using the target initially to cue a behavior, to shift or to station or to move across their enclosure or to come out of hiding, whatever the initial behavior was you wanted, you're using the target to cue that behavior. Once that behavior is done, you're now changing the target in some manner to communicate to the snake the behavior's finished. Thank you. Yes, you've done it, and I'm going to reinforce you now. So once the snake's performed your goal behavior, you want to choose a consistent way to use the target to let them know that the behavior's finished, and you want to mark the behavior and reinforce. And this can be accomplished in one of several ways. So options for consideration, and these are for specifically when you're using a flat target, are what I'm going to go over next. And you want to pick one of these options or come up with an option of your own, and you want to stick with it because you want your criteria to be clear. You want your signals to your snake to be clear. So manipulating the target as your marker or bridge can look like this. This first example is edging the target. So if you were the snake, you view the target's flat surface and then the trainer edges it, it's going to look like this video. What I often do Now remember, you're the snake viewing the target. You're looking at that flat target surface. You've done the behavior. Now the trainer is changing the orientation of the target from vertical to horizontal. And oftentimes the snake is above the target, kind of looking down now at the target. So these are two ways that you can change the orientation of the target or change the position of the target to mark a behavior. The first one is edging the target, and that is just changing the orientation of the target from front facing to edge facing. And then the second way is just flattening the target, changing the orientation of the target from vertical to horizontal. There is a third thing you can do, and that's just removing the target altogether. Now, I caution you because I used to do this. I used to present the target when the snake touched the target or approached the target. I would take the target away. That caused some of the snakes to chase the target or strike at the target. And that's when I started changing the orientation of the target to mark the end of the behavior. I just really started changing the orientation of the target to get it out of the way so that I could deliver reinforcement without the snake chasing the target or striking at the target. They did not all do that. So it is still an option to just remove the target and then deliver reinforcement. But if you have an animal that is stimulated by that into chasing after it or striking at it, it's probably not a good idea to use that method. You want to probably use one of these other methods. You can also manipulate the target by color coding it and flipping it from one color to the next. So if you start out with blue as the cue, and then you have white or a different color on the other side, you can change the target around to mark the end of the behavior. So you use one colored side of the target as a cue and one colored side as a marker. So basically, blue means I want you to do this behavior, and then when you flip the target to the white side or whatever color you've chosen, that now marks the end of the behavior. You can also use contrasting colors on one side and a solid color on the other, or you could use contrasting colors on both sides. You see some examples here in this photo. Whatever is salient for the snake, whatever the snake is able to perceive and understand as a communicative tool is okay to use. So you need to just figure out something that you're comfortable with and that your snake clearly perceives and understands, and then stick with it. Decide to use a marker or not, that's up to you. There are some instances where I don't mark the end of the behavior. The snake does the behavior and I just reinforce without a bridging stimulus. But there are other times when I do mark the end of a behavior and I use a bridging stimulus. That's completely up to you. If you're going to use one, decide on what marker to use, make it clear, be consistent, and stick with it. So in summary, a marker may be used to let the snake know they've completed the behavior you were asking for and that reinforcement's coming. Recent studies indicate no difference in the ability to learn a new behavior or in the speed of performing the behavior when a marker is used versus not used. So it's absolutely your option. If you choose to use one, be clear and consistent with its use. And if using one helps you as the trainer, as the handler, then by all means use one. Just make sure that your snake understands what it means. These are some references to some of those studies that I mentioned, as well as some general studies on using a marker. And some of these have clicker in the title, but just understand that clicker has become a word to mean the same thing as a marker or a bridge, and that could literally be a clicker, but it could be a whistle, a bell, a vibration. It could be a verbal marker, which is something I use a lot with horses and dogs. So if it says clicker, that also just means marker. Thank you very much for tuning in this Training Tuesday. If you have questions about this, you can reach me at behavioreducationllc@gmail.com or through my website at behavioreducation.org. And if you want to delve deeper into animal training and behavior science, consider becoming one of our Patreons. And now I'm going to leave you with 2 training sessions of snakes doing wonderful examples of what I just talked about. They are going to move to a target, and then I am going to use the target as a bridge to signal the end of the behavior, and I'm going to reinforce them. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, please remember to always be kind, love your animals, and enjoy the 2 training sessions that you're about to see.